Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We should actually be starting on time. Forgive me. Hi, welcome to this installment of Poetic License. If I had little sheets, oh my gosh, I think I may. I always keep them on my handy notebook. Hi, this is the most recent installment of Poetic License. It's been running. It started at a bookstore here in Austin, but thanks to the pandemic, it got shut down because they're like, no, we don't like to have you people around anymore because you're just sharing arts and not actually, you know, spending enough money on books. I don't know what their excuse was, but Poetic License, which was running there for so long, has now come to this Facebook for this Zoom meeting, thanks to John F. McMullen, because he is double plus awesome. He's my guru for all that is Zoom, and I've been allowing this to be a thing that is just open mics, round robins, not something for features, just so that we can hear as many voices as we possibly can. And hi, it's great to see you. And Susan, is it, you can just nod yes or no, is it as hot as it is, like, they're like, wow, it's hot here, it's in the 90s. I'm like, oh, we beat you all. It's like 100 every day plus. And so it's like, you stay strapped in the house.
It's barely, when it gets into the 90s, we think we have a cool day.
It's a relief. Oh, wait, it's 90s. Such a joy. Lovely. Anywho, I wanted to say thank you for all of you guys that are getting together. I am going to start by reading 3 poems, and then I will hand it off to John F. McMullen. And for newbies, what we say is the next poet that's up, but I'll also say what in Chicagoans they call the poet on deck, the poet that's following them, so you'll have a clue to get ready for your reading as it's coming up. So I will let you know what's going on, but I'm going to read 3 poems first. And I think all of you know that I usually read from, because I'm a literary magazine editor of 2 magazines. One is cc&d magazine, and the new issue of cc&d is called Endless Possibilities. And they're based on titles that we find in the issue. Hey, that sounds like a cool title, and come up with cool artwork for a cover that can pull it off. So this is cc&d. This is volume 337, and there are a lot of, bonus things in between, so there's been many more than 337. But this is called Endless Possibilities, and I am going to read 3 pieces that are within this, and I usually try to pull off if they also appear in another Scars Publications book, since I work with Scars Publications. This first poem that I'm going to read appears in, there's only one that I'm going to read from this, that's also in the book Testament. 4 parts. I'm taking my time explaining this for the newbies that are here. The first part's all about post-Roe v. Wade stuff. As a Chicagoan, you don't think about it so much, but when you're living in a state like Texas, you hear about it a heck of a lot more. So there's a lot of material in here about women's rights poetry and that. So I'm going to share with you one thing that is in both of these books. It's also a poem that I read at a beach feature. There's a beach poets thing in Chicago that was in July of this year, and this was a poem that was also in this. And I've never shared it with you before, so I'm sharing it now, and it is titled X and Y and What Seizing the Sexes. What is it that sets the sexes so apart? Yes, I know. There are biological differences between men and women, and those who rely on the Bible will tell you that woman was made from the rib of man. It's cut and dry then, adhering to the Christian religion that man's an extension of man. But for women who don't believe the Bible's word on that, when women were rulers of past cultures, we know that if we didn't live under man's foot at our necks, we may sing, anything you can do, I can do better. So really, I've been wondering what sets the sexes so apart. Maybe it's the science sets them apart. It's a science, since the sex of us human types, and all mammals too, is only decided by the male determining Y chromosome. Women have 2 X chromosomes that contain about 900 genes each that do all sorts of jobs. As for the men out there, they carry only 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome, which contains fewer genes, like I'm talking only 55. And one of those genes kickstarts male development in the embryo, but the rest of that Y chromosome is technically a lot of non-coded DNA, which in effect means there's a lot of junk there that doesn't do anything. Wow, I didn't realize science could logically explain what many of us rationally minded have already hypothesized. But I was just researching this to find the root of our differences, and I learned that the Y chromosome may actually be starting to disappear, and that there are men out there now with 2 X chromosomes and no Y, still with male parts and male sex drive. Because I keep hearing of people identifying as one gender or another, and it makes me wonder what's the real difference. Because we all have been led to believe that biology identifies us, and it may. But the more science I learn, the more I see how people identify could actually also play a role when science and society both define humanity. For now that I live in this post-gender bending world and forgetting to place a she/her in parentheses after my name, I only think back to living in the Chicago streets where I've seen too much violence firsthand toward women, no matter how they identified their gender. For it's no comfort how you define yourself when a woman still fears for her safety when walking down the streets, holding each key from her key ring between multiple knuckles in self-defense. For however society may define he, she, they, them, biology will still worm its way into the very base of not only ourselves, but also our protection and ultimately our rights. For how we identify will still be damned when biology uses brute force to take what they want. Identity be damned. For it doesn't matter how rich or how poor, how affluent or how downtrodden a female may be when it comes to rape or coercion, which leads to a pregnancy caused by a man that she/her/them/they all have to deal with entirely on their own. Well, they don't even get that choice anymore post the overturning of Roe v. Wade if they live in Bible Belt states, which very possibly is also a state that supported slavery. Living in a regressive state that chooses to take choice away from a woman after man has caused the now fiasco women ultimately couldn't control. So now it's all a matter of choice be damned for women, and gender identity be damned when it's still about biology and men couldn't care less how you identify yourself. For let's face it, ladies, you've got the parts, but you don't have a choice. Yes, I can agree with you that it's a nice, warm feeling to be able to define who you are to the world without fear of consequences. But it's a brutally cold feeling when more basic biological choices are taken away from you first. For at this point in the game, I worry so desperately about what sets the sexes so apart, while some, no matter how they define their gender, can still take choices away that can destroy the rights of so many more. Whose rights are worth saving? Wait a minute, what am I saying? Rights are worth saving, no matter the gender, and no matter how we identify ourselves. Rights are worth saving, no matter what sets the sexes apart. There's your one speech on that one. And I have to say, thank you. I'm seeing applause. Thank you, you guys. I was so excited that when this is published recently and it actually appeared in features, and I read in a thing on the beach, and it was actually a rain delay, so we were under an awning of a cafe, and I've got my big old watch on, whatnot, but it was just fun to be able to share these things that actually appear in the issue as well. Hey, check us out. Yeah, I'll read from a tablet because it was kind of wet out there. But anyway, the next poem that I wanted to share with you, oh yeah, you guys know it. I had to read some pieces for periodic table poems, and there's a section for it in the middle. There's a gentleman here for both of my magazines that sends short stories with element names. And I don't know if he knew that I wrote poetry about every element in the periodic table, and then later, because somebody suggested do Twitter length ones, I did Twitter length ones as well. So he did a thing about rhodium. So within this book, I have got poetry This next one will be the Twitter length one from Twitterverse Periodic Table Poetry. It also exists in there as well as in the cc&d books, Endless Possibilities. And it is for rhodium, and this one's called Rhodium's Flava Flav. Back in the day, menthol for smokes, maxed out supplies. Rhodium came along for that oh so precious mint Flava Flav. Chew gum with mint flav instead. Wear pricey jewelry. Listen to Paul McCartney tunes, and then realize how priceless and flavorful it really is. And I'm going to explain to you those details in the actual poem, but I read these things at the Poetry Bomb, which is why you're seeing a couple shots from that with the Poetry Bomb, Yippee Skippy. But I want to share with you the full poem for Rhodium, which, as I said, is not only in the book Endless Possibilities from cc&d, but also in Periodic Table Poetry, which back in the day, before Amazon raised their prices, was $11.18 for elements 1 through 118 in the periodic table, but I think it's a little higher than that now, but that's Amazon's fault, I promise. But this is actually the poem for Rhodium. When you say the word menthol, images probably crop up in your head of a woman holding a cigarette stick, like she's using her smoke as an orchestra wand, tracing the lines of the smoke that she's conducting a symphony with her mint-tasting cancer stick. But menthol is also used in lip balm. I really like that stuff too. I like that minty flavor on my lips. I mean, it's even used in cough medications. It can be used in those icy hot patches. Menthols and decongestants like Vicks Vaco Rub. It's in aftershaves to relieve razor burn. And speaking of that taste of cigarettes or lip balm, menthol in mouthwashes or toothpaste. And they're even in chewing gum. So, really, now that you know how widely it's used now, you can see how menthol's demand is now so huge compared to the natural supply. So, in Japan, one man even won in 2001 a Nobel Prize in Chemistry for a process to meet the demand for more menthol worldwide. This Chinese team used rhodium-based catalyst for menthol synthesis. And yeah, rhodium is used in catalysts for anything for automobile catalytic converters or making certain silicone rubbers. And sure, rhodium is used for jewelry, for coating sterling silver to stop it from tarnishing, or electroplating white gold and platinum, making it white and reflective. I mean, the Guinness Book of World Records gave Paul McCartney a rhodium-plated disc in 1979 for being history's all-time best-selling songwriter and recording artist. Not gold, not titanium, but rhodium. And because rhodium is so expensive, the World Records Award disc was given to Paul McCartney. It wasn't even solid rhodium. So I guess it's kind of interesting that this expensive decorative jewelry edition is also used to give our chewing gum that excellent minty flavor. So yeah, when you're worrying about how money can seem tight sometimes, don't worry about the jewelry. Just pop a stick of minty chewing gum in your mouth, and thanks to rhodium, and realize that we all probably don't have it that bad after all. I know you didn't think you were getting science lessons, but here you go. There's your rhodium. I don't know if I read this at a feature, did I? I can tell you if I did in a moment. Oh my gosh, I did. It was a thing in Pilsen, which is south side of Chicago. I don't know if Dan Weinberg would know about that, but it was Vita would set up shows, and this was at Pilsen periodically in a show I did there for periodic table poems. And yes, they're just really strange shots in somebody's house for it, but it was fun. It was a fun exercise. An exercise in futility, sharing periodic table poems to people. But anywho, that was enough of my babble for poetry, because I should be hearing everybody read. And as I had said, he had given most of the list off, but of course, Zoom host John F. McMillan will be first, and then Lorna will be following, as I had said, the poet on deck. So, John, my darling, if you are ready to take it away and share some poetry with us, we would all be triple plus thrilled if you would.